The number one cause for residential construction litigation is water infiltration, meaning we let water get into our buildings. Because water gets into our buildings, it starts to decompose the buildings. Everything goes from being lumber back to mulch. It also creates nasty stuff like mold and mildew and things that we don't want people breathing in. So we have got to keep water outside of our building. There's a lot of different strategies for that, but one of the detail strategies that we use is caulking. When you think caulking, you probably think of this little guy here. This is a terrible caulk gun. Don't buy the cheapest caulk gun that you can get. This is one of the few instances where I would say the more you spend, the more you get, as long as you don't go battery operated. You can go to a full battery operated caulk gun, which are awesome, but unless you're just putting out a whole lot of caulk as an exterior painter, for example, or as a waterproof detailer, most of the time you don't need that. But this guy here is just, it's a toy, it's junk. Don't use this. In my opinion, this is sort of the lowest end that I would go. This is a heavy duty caulk gun. The plunger shaft here is a smooth shaft. It's not notched. On some of the cheaper ones, you'll see notches, and it'll actually use the trigger will actually grab one of the notches and push it forward and then ratchet back and push it forward. I prefer a smooth shaft and then a cam lock on the shaft. It just makes it a lot easier. You don't have to worry about the orientation of your shaft getting into the wrong spot and then popping loose and coming free. Some caulk guns will have a cutter built in to where you can cut the tip. In fact, this larger one right here has a spout cutter right there. And that's intended for, you pull this thing out here and you stick the end of your spout into this spout cutter, and there's a knife that if I pull this, it is going to cut the tip off of it. And it does something like that. It's not great. I don't like it because two reasons. One, it may not work like this didn't work here. And two, it just cuts a square end to my tip. And if you're doing a lot of adhesive or especially caulking, the way that you form and shape your tip makes all the difference in the world. If you do a good tip on your caulk gun, then it's going to come out nice and smooth. It's going to give you the bead you want. Everything is perfect. A mangled up end with this cutter here just doesn't really matter. So I don't look for having a cutter, but I do look for a high compression ratio, and I also look for a smooth rod like this. It's a caulk gun. It's not really that complicated. You've got a larger version like this, which will push a 28 fluid ounce cartridge, like this guy here. Or you have the smaller version, which pushes a 10 ounce cartridge like this one here. The third type is a little bit more specialty, but you're definitely going to run into if you're doing any type of waterproofing. And that is a sausage gun. It's called a sausage gun because the cartridge that you run in it looks like a little sausage package, right? This is soft-sided, squishy. I can feel the adhesive sealant in there, and it's just looks like a sausage gun. I put it in here, and then I poke the end with a razor blade. I put holes in the end. You don't need to cut off this little barb. You just punch holes in the end, and then you put your tip on. A nice thing about this is once you have your special patented tip cut in the end, you don't have to recreate that for every single tube that you put in, because this tip stays with the gun, and I'm able just to replace the product in there, and I'm able to lay the same bead day in and day out. The other thing that I like about it is after I've used a cartridge like this glue here, I've got this whole cartridge to throw away. And if I am waterproofing a large structure, for example, and I'm using a fluid applied flashing material, and it's coming in cartridges like this, if I use hundreds of these, which you could do, then you've got to throw away hundreds of these, and it just takes up a lot of room in your dumpster and in the landfill. This sausage tube, on the other hand, compresses completely to this little puck here. So the foil of this tube, this is foil packaging with product in it. I squeeze all the product out, I put it on my building that I'm building, and I get this as a result. And then I can throw this away, and this takes up much less space than this. And if you're the guy who's paying the bill for every haul off of the trash dumpster, this versus this may not make as big of a difference to you if you're not paying that bill. If you are, all of a sudden you care about how much waste is generated on your job site. So definitely higher end products come in this, and it's a higher end gun. You're going to be spending, probably 10 times on this than you will be on just a regular caulk gun. I wouldn't go out and buy it unless you know you're going to be doing a lot of waterproofing, and then you're going to need something like that. But in general, your 10 and your 28 ounce caulk guns are going to be all that you need for most construction projects.